we're not afraid to call this what it is. I mean, it's absolute hypocrisy to start with. We've got a government that says you can't legally smoke or drink or vote under the age of 18. You can't drive under the age of 17. But here we're saying at 14, you can change your identity without the consent of your parents and without the medical practitioner's intervention. I mean, if you needed a spotlight shone on how society's going mad and crazy and how we're trying to drive the family unit in our society off a cliff.
The Labor Party in Queensland passed the Births, Deaths and Marriages Amendment Bill in the last session of Parliament. The bill allows a child aged under 16 to seek the assessment of a developmentally informed practitioner and change their legal sex record with or without their parents' consent. The passing of the bill didn't receive a hell of a lot of media coverage. So what is the significance of the bill and why should parents be concerned about it?
Yeah, look, our guys in Parliament, KAP, Nick Demeto and Shane Canute, did a terrific job opposing this bill, and I would argue took the forefront of the opposition towards it. And it's because it's a big deal. This is once again the government trying to replace the job of parents. And when they dispossess parents of their authority over their kids, they're at the same time making themselves the quasi-parents by policy of the kids, and they keep doing that incrementally. And we identified that early in the KAP, and that's why our guys made a big fight against it. And while we're talking about it continually in the media afterwards, we're not getting much of a take-up in the mainstream media because everyone feels uncomfortable talking about this. And anyone that questions it is called out, called bigoted and full of hate and lack of compassion, which I think is really unfair, obviously. But we're not afraid to call this what it is. I mean, it's absolute hypocrisy to start with. We've got a government that says you can't legally smoke or drink or vote under the age of 18. You can't drive under the age of 17. They're saying they're now talking. The government's been saying at 14 is the age for criminal responsibility needs to be taken down because people don't know the consequences of their actions, the crimes they commit, and they want to take that down to 12. But here we're saying at 14 you can change your identity without the consent of your parents and without the medical practitioner's intervention. And it's just I mean, if you needed a spotlight shone on how society's going mad and crazy and how we're trying to drive the family unit in our society off a cliff. Parents are struggling enough as it is, trying to maintain control of their family unit, let alone the government trying to dispossess them as more rights. It's just horrible.
In some of the briefing material related to this, the government said that over the last, let's say 5 or 10 years, there have been about 243 people who have changed their sex on their birth certificate. It's such a small number of people that we're really talking about here that probably would do this. So what is the reasoning behind, putting up a bit of a contest here and saying, and putting drawing a line in the sand or putting a sign on the side of the road that says, look, this is too far, or, you need to turn around and go back?
Politicians and the political parties got a virtue signal, and every 12 months they need a sacrificial lamb. They need to send a message out to the whatever political group, and the Labor's in a constant battle with the Greens, so they need to put some legislation in every 12 months to retain those new wokey green sort of voters, and this is a manifestation of that in state parliament. So, which is really pretty malicious when you think about it, because I think there's some real harm can be done of in the vagaries of this legislation, like letting kids do this. And I say that kids, at 14, I was pretty reckless and not that discerning about my future decisions. And we're putting all that responsibility in their hands. And I think it just says that there's a lot more politics to this than compassion. and which makes it probably even more distasteful, the fact that they try and the opposition, which is mainly Labor in this, really go hard at the KAP, saying we're bigoted and calling you all sorts of names and scowling, and it gets really firing. It's funny, mate. In the 11 years I've been in Parliament, no one's ever shouted from the galleries in defence of anything that we've on the issues I've been on supporting in Parliament. They've always been the shouters. Have always been against the issues that I'm for. So I must be a terribly out of touch or discompassionate sort of person, or rather, we have some fanatical ideologies that have that zealotry type approach to it that really just cannot tolerate any alternate point of view. Can't have a intelligent discussion on this. They just need to try and shout you down and call your names. And this is a perfect example of that in State Parliament. So I was really proud of our blokes, Nick Demetto and Shane Canute, in State Parliament, of making a stand on behalf of the KAP.